So we know over the past couple days we've been reflective, we've been challenged, we've been inspired by a number of the victories that our labor movement has achieved through APALA. We've had strategic workshops, we've had young voices, and those voices are being heard. The undocumented, aspire, and young voices are being heard, are they not? And so what I'd like to do is kind of hone it in a little bit here. I am so honored and privileged to be the, I'm gonna move this back, you guys, because when I was sitting out there, you can't really see the panelists. Is someone here can help me? Okay, that's the way we do it. Thank you. Can you guys see people now? See it? Awesome. So this particular panel is going to go a little bit deeper, broad, and then bring it home on what the role is in fighting and stopping corporate greed and privatization. This plenary will express our work nationally and internationally, and the intersection, how that is reflected in our elected leaders. I also have a special connection to a number of these campaigns, which I will go through as I introduce the sisters, but very briefly, and thank you, Greg, for the great introduction. My roots are in Oakland. My parents came from the island of Guam when the U.S. was trying to do strategic recruiting for the military. My father was a cook. My mother taught in Guam, and then after raising, how many kids? 10 kids. We were born and raised in East Oakland. And what I learned from my family and my experiences is humility, respect, and something that's not very traditional for Pacific Islanders, especially women or girls, is to speak out. So I just wanted to share with you that through struggle and through our experiences to stand up and fight, we need to reflect on our roots and draw from them time to time, sometimes more often than we need, so we can remember where we came from. So with that, I wanted to go through and explain the introductions here. And as I speak about each of these fierce sisters that are up here, I want folks to take note. And I want you to take note and look at your own locals, look at your chapters, and try to identify, if you haven't already, some of the fierceness that may be undercover, but you as a leader need to pull out, because this is really what our future and developing our leadership is all about. So first of all, I have the honor and pleasure of telling you a little bit about Louisa Blue, who is the Chief Elected Officer of SEIU 5-1, sits on the APALA National Executive Board. I've known this sister for many years. We are both rank and file in SEIU. She was on the San Francisco part of the local, and I was on the Oakland side. She is an RN by profession, and her roots come from healing and being an advocate for patients and families. And in that, she also was exemplary in being very compassionate about those patients who had HIV/AIDS. Through her experience, she fought very hard for standards, staff, you know, nurse to patient standards. And through that effort, we would venture to say that California became the first state to legislate nurse to patient racial standards in the country. Louisa then, after being elected president, went on to the national level and led the SEIU Nurses Council, which continued to advocate for these standards on a national level. We've organized together here in San Diego, Las Vegas, upstate New York, yeah. Who would see a whole lot of APIs in Corning, upstate New York? There were 3 of us, the 3 organizers. But you know, what I will tell you about this sister is that her passion and experience is what gave her the ability to talk to non-union workers, to get their issues, to get them to see and realize those issues so that they knew in order to change their condition, they needed to stand up and fight for them. They had to have their own voice and they had to find it. We were arrested together over the last couple years, year at least 2 times. And this is what relationships do. Hey, Joe, can you come and get arrested for home care workers? Yeah, put me on. Hey, Josie, can you come to Sacramento? We're going to get arrested to stand up for family childcare providers. Yep, put me on the list. And that's what it's about. It's about trust and relationships that get built over the years so we know we can call on each other to take those risks and stand up and be a voice for others. Louisa continues to be on the national board of APALA and was elected 2 terms as its president, and we're excited about that. So let's give Louisa a hand. The next sister I have the pleasure of introducing, if you see 2 little girls running around, those are her beautiful granddaughters. So am so excited she has her family here. She is currently the Vice President for Immigration, Diversity, and Civil Rights for Unite Here. For 12 years, this sister, I thought our Labor Council was big, 100,000 members. That's small potatoes because LA is the big kahuna. There were like, 700, 800,000 members under this sister's dynamic leadership. And I want to paint you a picture. Do people remember the Justice for Janitors campaign? Okay, so this sister, under her leadership, galvanized the LA community and labor allies and faith. I was in the city of Los Angeles, be part of that historic experience where over 1 million people came out to stand up and fight for higher standards for janitors. And this comes, again, from her roots. This sister, as a child, worked in the fields and traveled, with the migration of crops throughout California, picking fruits and vegetables. And we know from what we've heard about that experience, it's very exploitative when you have child labor in the fields. But she knew she had to be part of the family effort to help take care of, what her parents, enabled the children to be part of that. And so because of those hardships and those difficult conditions, under Maria's leadership in Los Angeles, hotels began paying the workers at least $15.37 an hour. So let's give it up for Sister Maria Elena. Brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, we got some fierce women up here. So Esther Lopez, to my left and some to your right, is the Executive Vice President of UFCW, and I personally want to thank you. My sister Mary was a Safeway grocery worker for 33 years and was able to retire on a decent pension. So thank you for your leadership. As Director of the Civil Rights and Community Action Department, Sister Esther projected UFCW into the most critical and crucial civil rights battles of our time. fighting back against voter suppression, and working to end exploitation of refugees from countries like Burma, Sudan, and Somalia, creating more opportunities for women and expanding LGBT equality. Add Honduras to Sister Esther's advocacy to fight for human and labor rights, because I had the honor and privilege to join her on a labor delegation to Honduras about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Her amazing leadership is best expressed on comprehensive immigration reform. After President Obama announced relief from deportation for the parents of US citizens and legal permanent residents, Esther launched a program to ensure eligible UFCW members were first in line to apply, and spearheaded the Union Citizenship Action Program to help UFCW members become naturalized and on to the path of citizenship. So let's give it up for Sister Esther. And next, I have really the privilege of introducing Sister Becky Pringle, who is the Vice President of NEA, the nation's largest labor union and professional association for educators. A middle school science teacher with 31 years of classroom experience, and she still has a great smile on her face. Becky has been a passionate advocate for educators and student success, diversity, and developing future leaders. Sister Pringle most recently served as NEA Secretary-Treasurer and was very critical and integral to the success of NEA's work to transform the education professions and improve student learning. Thank you, Sister Pringle, for your leadership. I have mega relatives that are teachers, and including Hawaii, and I can't tell you what an incredible profession it has done for changing their lives and giving to their community and taking care of the children's education. Becky has a long and notable record of association advocacy at the national, state, and local levels. Beginning as a local president, she went on to serve on the board of directors of NEA, the Pennsylvania State Education Association, and served 2 terms as a member of NEA's executive committee. Let's give it up for Sister Becky. This next sister is the Secretary-Treasurer of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, only representing 1.6 million workers. Now, if I'm talking about power, there is power in those numbers. And not only that, but Sister Lara Reyes is also a home care worker. She had her son, Damien, who, because he was born prematurely, had severe cerebral palsy. And there was a prognosis that he would be unable to speak and confined to a wheelchair. She gave up her job and became a home care provider to care for Damien full-time. Today, Damien is a college student majoring in biology. And I tell you, home care is very close to my heart. It was one of the first campaigns that I worked on and organized in Alameda County, in LA County, San Mateo County, and San Francisco. And because I was able to go out there and talk to workers like Laura, I began to be so inspired by their stories of commitment to take care of those who should not be institutionalized, but should be able to stay home in the dignity of their home. Am I right? So we truly honor you, Sister Laura, for your trailblazing, your commitment, your heart, and your leadership. She joined the United Domestic Workers in 2002 Local 3930, and through her rank and file leadership was elevated, became a union organizer, and was elected UDW president in 2006. She has led the organizing effort of the largest AFSCME affiliate in California, which drove up to 62,000 home care providers. She organized house meetings, got to talk to the workers, hear their issues, and if people understand the industry, the workplace is where? In the home. So when anyone says that you can't organize workers unless they're at a central workplace, trust me, they are absolutely wrong. Home care workers came together. They saw their voice and their strength and standing together, sharing their experiences, and standing up for better standards for the people that they take care of, as well as themselves as workers. And as a non-English speaking workforce, a lot of monolingual and limited English speakers, Laura is able to communicate as a bilingual activist to help break down the in-home support services bureaucracy. So give it up for Sister Lara. And finally, we have Sister Mary Catherine Ricker, who is the Executive Vice President of the American Federation of Teachers, who was overwhelmingly elected in July 2014 at AFT's Los Angeles convention. Come on, it's okay. Mary served as president of the St. Paul, Minnesota, where she championed innovative teacher-built solutions that improve teaching and learning, as well as strengthening public education. Her achievements included the union's alternative teacher recruitment and licensure program. Career Teacher, which was a full-spectrum peer assistance and review program, site-based school redesign and governance, a parent-teacher home visit project, comprehensive for teachers, professional development with meaningful community engagement. She is a native of Minnesota, has taught classrooms, and get this, in St. Cloud, St. Paul, Minnesota, Calmus, Washington, and Seoul, South Korea. Mary Catherine serves on the Education Minnesota Governing Board and is a past president of the Education Minnesota Foundation for Teaching and Learning. She was selected to co-chair the Minnesota Department of Education Teacher Evaluation Group and has served on the department's Education Finance Working Group. So am I talking about power, or am I talking about power? Because when sisters like this are on policy-making bodies, they can affect and make changes that impact working families and those most in need. So let's give it up for this amazing panel. So next, I am going to ask each of the speakers to come up and speak to you at the podium. They will have 5 minutes to put forward, because they have synthesized all their experiences to fight against privatization and corporate greed. So listen carefully and cherish every word they give you. It will be the roadmap and give you a lens about their efforts to fight corporate greed and privatization, because brothers and sisters, this is serious business. 2016 offers us opportunities to make some fundamental change in this country, but we have got a hell of a fight in front of us. So these sisters will be inspiring you, and I will leave the podium and ask Sister Blue to come up. After the presentations are done, depending on the time, we will ask each of them to do a summary and then try to address some questions from the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, APALA.
Good morning.
All right, thank you, Josie, for that introduction. And I just want to say, this doesn't happen this often.
Yeah.
Right? When you get, I called it the big kahuna, plenary, right? And it just doesn't happen this often. When do you ever see and we can all be honest here, when you go to a national union function, when do you see a bunch of sisters like leading a panel and talking about what's going on in their union, right? Because not only are they leaders within their union, but they are leaders within their community as well. So I'm just really honored to be part of this panel, and I hope that all of you will get something out of this. So as Camacho says, my name is Louisa Blue. I'm the Chief Elected Officer of SEIU Local 521. We represent Central California, from the surfers of the Monterey, Santa Cruz Bay, into Silicon Valley, where the damn 1%ers live, right? And then into the Central Valley, right, where there is conservative, right-wing politicians that just screw it up for workers up and down the Central Valley. But we're going to make some changes there. So here's a question I want to ask. How many people in this room have heard about the fast food workers campaign? All right? How many people in this room participated in the April 15th fast food mobilizations? Okay. So SEIU embarked on this campaign over 2 years ago. And the first group of 200 fast food workers in New York City went out on strike in 2012. There was a lot of skepticism, both outside and inside the union, and also lots of questions internally within SEIU about why are we organizing fast food workers who are, and demanding $15 an hour for flipping hamburgers. And I remember being, you guys all know that's true, you all heard that, right? And I remember, I think it was my second International SEIU Executive Board meeting, and I was part of those discussions. And there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of concern about why are we focusing on fast food workers. But I was one of the board members that expressed my support. And it was because I was a fast food worker as a teenager in San Francisco. I worked as a waitress, serving hamburgers and French fries at Woolworths in San Francisco at the corner of Powell and Market Street. Yeah, it ain't there anymore. At the corner of Powell and Market Street where the cable car table turn. But here was the difference, sisters and brothers. I belonged to the Retail Clerks Union, and I made over $5 an hour. And after 47 years later, now you guys know how old I am, we have fast food workers who make anywhere from $7.25 an hour to maybe $9 an hour. And they're trying to raise families on that salary. We have waitresses and waiters who don't really make minimum wage because in a lot of states, what they do is they deduct the number of tips you get from your hourly wage. Yep. So, with Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's, those are the top 3 fast food burger places. They sell 75% of burgers in this country, and we're targeting McDonald's. So why McDonald's? It's the second largest private sector employer in the world. Only Walmart and the US Department of Defense employ more people. And because it's such a huge employer, McDonald's sets standards that affect workers and employers across the economy. When it holds wages as low as possible, it forces other employers to try to push down their wages also. McDonald's also sets community standards because it buys huge amounts of beef, chicken, and other commodities. It demands low prices, which holds down incomes and living standards for farmers and suppliers in the US and around the world. Raising wages at McDonald's will send a message that when workers stand together, they can be heard and make change at one of the most largest, most powerful corporations in the world. So how have things changed over the past 2 years since those first 200 brave workers went out on strike in New York? When the people who work in fast foods in New York went on strike in November 2012, President Obama and the Democrats in Congress supported increasing the minimum wage to $9 an hour, but we had some really bad politicians who wouldn't support that, so that proposal went nowhere. But by standing together and building a movement, fast food workers, and other underpaid workers have totally changed the conversation in the United States about wages. President Obama and Democrats in Congress now support a $12 national minimum wage. We have Hillary Clinton, who's publicly backed the Fight for 15 movement. Workers and elected officials in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York have boosted their local wage floors to $15 an hour. Some corporations like IKEA and Gap have also decided to raise wages on their own. And in my neck of the woods, where my headquarters is in Santa Clara County, my local work with working partnerships, the clergy, the Labor Council, and community allies, and we won a living wage of $19.06 per hour. And last week, we expanded that, that's right, and last week we expanded that to cover 17,000 contracted workers that work for the county. So since that historic day in November 2012, at least 9 million workers in the US have had their wages go up since the Fight for 15. We have workers in other countries that are supporting that movement. One of the videos was shown was Filipino McDonald's workers who were singing and doing this protest at McDonald's singing Let It Go. Is that the Frozen song? Let it go, let it go. Right, with the security guards running around trying to get them out of the way. But anyway, workers and their unions across the world have organized 2 global days of actions to support the Fight for 15. On May 2014, workers in 33 countries held strikes and actions to support that. We've had workers in the Philippines, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Australia, India, and New Zealand participate. And this past April, we had 40 countries that participated and over 230 cities in the US. The largest mass mobilization of workers that this US labor movement have seen in many, many decades. Many decades. So, workers across the country, in terms of next steps, they've been signing cards, going online, petition to support the New York Wage Review Board to make sure that the ceiling or the bottom, the lowest wage that fast food workers can make is $15 an hour. And that opens it up, sisters, for other low-wage workers, right? Because we know that school workers, many school workers don't make 15. We know that retail clerk workers don't make 15. We know that hospital workers don't make 15. We know that part-time folks don't make 15. Airport workers. There is a whole slew of workers that don't make 15, including inside our union. Inside our union, that people don't make $15 an hour, right? So this is more than just about fast food. It's about raising the standards for all workers in this country and linking arms with workers across the world, because US corporations, they don't only screw us, but they screw our brothers and sisters in the other countries of this world. So I got Josie standing here, so I have to stop. But thank you. Woo!
Okay, buenos dias. Good morning, sisters and brothers. I just want to also say I'm very thrilled to be on this panel with these sisters who are remarkable women who care not only about the members of their respective and the workers in their respective unions, but they care about everybody across the board. So I'm really excited and glad to be here. And I want to acknowledge the Unite Here leaders who are here today. Where's Unite Here? Yay. And thank everybody. And I remember the early days. 23 years now APALA's been around? Where's Kent? Kent and Art Takei. I remember those days. In Los Angeles, we were talking about why should there be an APALA. And to see this now, this convention and all the work that APALA does is really, really tremendous. So Unite Here, the question about how do we fight corporate greed, we've made a commitment in our national convention to transform 10,000 lives, a minimum of 10,000 lives each year. That means organizing. That means collective bargaining agreement in workplaces. Casinos, whether they're tribal or commercial, stadiums, airports, hotels, universities, and we appreciate every single one of you and your organizations when you stop and join a picket line, or you don't go into a hotel that's, where there's a strike line. And I remind you all, I'm sure somebody already did, about these cards in the Fair Hotel. It's just a reminder of our consumer power as well, not just our picket line power and our worker power, but our consumer power. So make sure you take this wherever you go in your respective community-based organizations. And we try our best every day to build what we think is equality in the workplace. Because the best way to fight corporate greed is collective bargaining. That's the best way to fight corporate greed. Now, there's a lot of young folks, I understand, at this convention here today, and the word collective bargaining may sound a little bit old-fashioned, may not have that sound of militancy, and it may sound outdated, but the truth is that collective bargaining means a community of workers and the power of workers in the workplace. And that's what we all should strive to do. The men and women, a man or a woman, walking across a bridge in Selma, Alabama, means very little. But a collective of people crossing that same bridge changed the world. Bargaining means equality. You can't bargain with anyone unless you are that person's equal. Collective action is the only way for a worker to be equal with the boss. Remember, we all fight to elect better people to public office, and we all fight to change laws. Winning through legislation isn't always winning. Not a single farm worker who has a United Farm Workers contract has died of heat. Not a single housekeeper who has a Unite Here contract has been a victim of wage theft. Not a single undocumented immigrant worker who has a good union contract is denied health insurance. But there are laws on the books that without collective bargaining, where that happens in workplaces all the time. Why? Because those workers have equality in the workplace. Strength only comes through equality. And equality only comes when workers have rights that they themselves can enforce. That's why it takes struggle and sacrifice. That's why people get fired and harassed and even deported. But in the end, when they win equality, they win power. I had a sister right now from Unite Here in San Francisco telling me about, in the last few weeks, the struggle to win equality in a place called Flying Foods that prepare food for the passengers in the airplanes. And they decided on their own enough was enough. They're going through negotiations and kind of not getting everywhere what they want. And they decided on their own to do a wildcat. They went out on strike. They did stoppage, and they wouldn't go back in. They wouldn't go back in until they saw progress in their negotiations. Even the union leaders couldn't get them to go back in. And thank God, because they stayed out day after day after day until they showed the boss who has the power in the workplace. That couldn't happen without collective bargaining. And finally, let me just say, how many minutes do I have? I'm done. Okay, let me say really, really quick on the immigration front. We're all really outraged over Donald Trump's racist remarks about Mexican immigrants. But let me tell you, less attention has been paid to a very controversial immigration program that is making a lot of money for rich developers like Trump. It's an irony that the one immigration program that is running well is the one that helps rich people get richer while leaving hardworking immigrants behind. Right. The program is the EB-5. It allows wealthy people from abroad to get green cards for themselves and a path to citizenship for their families in exchange for investing and bringing money into a business. That means a new hotel, for example, in the US. Each investment is supposed to produce 10 new jobs in rural areas or areas of high unemployment. Real estate developers, hotel and casino developers get access to billions of dollars with the promise that thousands of new jobs will be created. But in reality, 95% of all EB-5 funded projects don't have to report a single new job. And worse, there is no requirement that these must be good family-sustaining jobs. So EB-5 falls flat in meeting the needs of those who most need the support. If wealthy citizens of foreign countries are getting a fast track to the front of the line to the US for citizenship, then immigrant men and women who come to work in those industries, housekeepers, construction, janitors, truck drivers, they should also have expedited access to US citizenship. So we invite you to join with us and expose the hypocrisy of this broken immigration system. Thank you very much.
Here.
Woo! Thank you, Sister Maria. Now we have Esther Lopez.
Good morning. There's a pretty fierce timekeeper up here. I'm just going to out him right away, all right? And Sister Durazo, on behalf of all Mexicans in the U.S., I've got 2 words and a 1-finger salute for the Donald.
Yeah.
Woo!
Exactly.
My hand keeps wanting to go up, and I'm holding it down, all right? Corporate greed has a name. Corporate greed has a name, and in our industry, their name is the Waltons. So let me tell you something about what happens to workers in the retail industry. I hope that some of you were here when we were in yesterday's panel when the Taxi Driver Alliance was sharing with us the tactics and the strategies that are used by corporations to exploit workers. And Walmart is the master of all masters. You see, sisters and brothers, in our union, we have to negotiate with the 1%. We have to negotiate with the largest pork processing company in the world. In case you guys hadn't figured this out, is bacon actually doesn't come all nicely sliced and packaged. Our members actually slaughter the hogs and the chickens. And you know, one of the things I want to just take a moment and say, be careful when you call them unskilled workers, because unless you can turn a cow into a T-bone steak in 45 minutes, our members have skills.
Damn right.
I have the honor and the privilege to represent those men and women who put food on our tables. And it's really interesting how the name of St. Cloud came up today, because Sister Mary Catherine, you should see how the community of St. Cloud is retaliating against Somali workers in Minnesota. And I want all of you, and there's Somali workers that work in our plants. Mm-hmm. They're our members. And I want all of you to take a moment and talk to your union officials and tell them to weigh in against the horror and the racism and the Islamophobia that's going on in St. Cloud, Minnesota today. That's what our members are facing. So one more quick thing. Be careful when we call them low-wage workers. How about workers in low-wage jobs?
Thank you.
How about that, huh?
Yeah.
How about workers that are forced to work in jobs like Walmart? Because I don't know about you, but our members didn't raise their hands and say, we want to be low-wage workers. They're forced to work in jobs that pay low wages. So a couple of quick things I want you to put. This is Walmart. This is, somebody said big kahuna. Oh, forget that, boy. That's the big kahuna. That's the 1% of the 1%. And I'll tell you what they do. Part-time workers. The business model is one of high turnover rate. That is how they do business. They count on that you're not going to stay on the job. They make it so that you will not stay on the job. Part-time workers, so that you have to work 2 or 3 jobs. Guess who uses guest workers? Walmart. Guess who uses contingent workers, temporary workers? So when we really are thinking about corporate greed, we got to remember that they have names. And I want to say this, because Walmart is really, really slick. And they give out a lot of money in something called the Walmart Foundation. I can tell you that last year at an immigrant rights conference in Los Angeles, Walmart officials were being paraded around. And I can tell you that we have conducted studies in our union that show very specifically that Black and Latina women are the poorest paid in retail work. These are the strategies and the tactics that they use, and they use effectively. A few months ago, I was in LA, and let me end by saying this. A few months ago, I was in LA. I was there as a member of the board of directors of the Center for Community Change, and this is what I learned in our delegation trip to LA. That community, faith, labor, and all of us have to have a long-term vision. You see, strategy is not about the past. Strategy is not about defense. And strategy is not about protection. Strategy is a vision of the future, and that's what I learned from our brothers and sisters in LA, and we visited worker centers and unions and community groups. And I learned one thing, that if we want to fight corporate greed, sisters and brothers, we better lean on this one together.
Yeah.
If you want to make a difference with the largest employer in the country, we better lean into this one together. And we better understand that it is not helpful to workers when we make excuses, when we bargain with ourselves. We cannot afford to do that. We need to defend our communities, and we need to ensure, in Spanish we say, trabajos dignos, jobs with dignity. Thank you. Woo!
What do we want? Unity. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
Okay, you guys, I'm telling you, it gets better. We have some incredible sisters up here, and next, Sister Becky Pringle will come up. and speak to you.
Woo! Oh, I don't know, Sister Josie, I don't know if I can get better than that.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how proud and honored I am to be flanked by these incredible women. Give it up again for this amazing panel. Wow. Let me, as always, begin by thanking the incredible leadership of APALA with Johanna and Greg, you know, stepping up to this amazing work. Their relentless focus on the many issues that you're hearing your sisters up here talk about today, from economic justice to comprehensive immigration reform to voting rights to building the labor movement back and beyond where it was, to protecting the rights and dignity of American workers and their families and their children. I cannot thank them enough on behalf of the 3 million members of the National Education Association. Yeah. I represent teachers and nurses and school bus drivers and principals and administrators and secretaries. We represent all of the men and women who have dedicated their lives to educating America's children. And I am so very proud that not only am I flanked by sisters here today, but in my life every day, I am flanked by 2 other sisters, all 3 of us, the President, Vice President, and Secretary Treasurer, are ethnic minority women, a first in the largest labor union in this country. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Of all the civil rights for which this world has fought and died for 5,000 years, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental. The freedom to learn has been bought by bitter sacrifice. So whatever you might think about the curtailment of other civil rights, we must fight to the last ditch to keep open the right to learn. Those powerful words by W.E.B. Du Bois capture the magnitude of the work that we as educators have to do. And you, as unionists, must join us in doing to ensure that public education continues to be a right for every single student in America. Because we know it's not just about impacting their lives, but it is absolutely about the success and the prosperity and the survival of this country. You know, when I stepped into my classroom 30, none of your business, years ago, my wide-eyed enthusiasm with a sense of hope and promise, I had no idea that public education would become a notion at risk. Fast forward, here we are in the fight to save the very institution that was designed to be that great equalizer, that engine of opportunity in a democratic society. Here we are in this climate of emboldened billionaires who are positioned to buy this next election, committing over $1 billion and saying it brazenly on the front page of the USA Today. Do you know who I'm talking about? Those Koch brothers, peddling privatization and a whole lot of blame. Here we are with increasing student needs and diminishing resources. But here we are, standing united, rising up and saying enough. Enough of politicians with their cozy billionaire buddies using our recession to voucherize and privatize our schools and fatten their pockets and strip the working class of their rights. Enough. Enough of using taxpayer dollars on market-driven deforms that are doing nothing less than fueling the inequities in this country. Enough of starving our schools and denying our students of the resources they need to ensure that every single one of them are successful. We know that investing in our kids and our educators and our parents is the answer, and it is the only one. We know that this privatization movement that, quite honestly, let's just be honest, started with the Brown versus Board of Education movement, the decision, where white families did not want to go to school with black families. And so they legislated voucherization of our schools. We know where this started, and we understand that the privatization and voucherizing of our schools impacts our ethnic minority communities more than any others. I cannot believe you just held up that sign saying my time is up and Josie's standing up here. I can't believe that. Enough. He said enough. Becky, sit down. But I can't sit down yet because I have to tell you something. You know, there is nothing more powerful than to come into a room full of brothers and sisters who are standing up together saying enough. There is nothing more powerful than that. And whether we're talking about wages for workers or we're talking about investing in our kids, we are in this fight together. So, Josie, I just need one more second to ask this incredibly beautiful, amazing crowd an important question. It's a question that was posed by Jim Malone in one of my favorite movies of all times, The Untouchables, to Elliot Ness. You see, Jim Malone had been shot 5,229 times, and he was dying in a pool of blood, but he grabbed Elliot Ness by his collar, and he spit in his face, and he said, "What are you prepared to do?" So that's my question to you this morning. Now I'm looking out at you, and I know that you will tell me, Becky, we will do whatever it takes. So let me ask you, brothers and sisters, what are you prepared to do? I can't hear you. What are you prepared to do? Fight. Josie.
Sister!
I know we will beat them back, and we will take back our country. Thank you so very much.
Bring it, sister. Bring it.
Okay, brothers and sisters, I want to say bam on that. So next, I have the honor and privilege of asking Sister Lara from the Home Care Union to come forward.
Once upon a time, I was from the Home Care Union, now representing ASME. We got to make sure of that. Wow. Woo! I'm going to bring it till I die, sister. That was good, right? Now I got to speak. Woo! The white chick, right?
I got your back.
Thanks. Right? Gotta keep it real. Si se puede. Si se puede. I always kid with my girl Johanna that in my other life I was Panay, okay? And Lupita. So I was sitting here collecting my thoughts before I went up, and I thought to myself, I'm a ninang. One day, maybe my niece is going to be sitting here. Fighting.
There you go.
Louder. Oh, I can talk loud. Yeah. I said, I'm a ninang. I'm an auntie. I'm a mama. I'm a sister. And I thought, one day, my niece might be sitting here. And if she is, I certainly hope that she's going to be sitting next to people that also look like me. It's true. I'm not joking when I say that. Because it saddens me that some people just don't get it. Because it doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter what you look like. Everyone in this country deserves to have a voice and deserves dignity. Am I right?
That's right. There you go.
I am really, really thrilled to be here. This is my hometown. This is where I grew up. This is where 2 of my children are. And if you didn't see me yesterday, it's because I had to go and, whip a little ass on them. Excuse my language. I got it. Mama's all the way in D.C., so we got to keep that line tight, right?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yep.
But I will tell you that, yes, I come from home care. I have a child who's disabled, and he's disabled because I was discriminated against. Because his father didn't speak English and I was poor. And I found myself struggling. I was actually a preschool teacher. I was in education, not getting paid fairly, not being dignified, They thought, oh, you're just a preschool teacher. Didn't matter that you have to have a college education, always the thumb, right?
Yep.
And then I found myself with this child, and there was a whole big, ugly monster that reared its head to me that I never thought I would experience. I never thought, me as a white person, that I would be discriminated against. Oh, I was. I tell people that the day my son was born was the worst day of my life, but also the best day of my life, because it opened my eyes up to that ugly monster. And so I struggled. I really, really struggled. Financially, emotionally, my family struggled. I had to give up my profession in education and care for my son. And I tell people, who wouldn't do that, right? As a mother, we all, if you're a mother, anyone would do that for their child, right?
That's right.
So there's no big miracle there. But what did happen to me, and I'm thankful for, is that my union came knocking on my door. And it came knocking when I was on welfare, when I couldn't afford to feed my family unless my family bought groceries for me. Where I was so poor, I told someone the other day that, my electricity bill was paid 6 months out of the year. That's how poor I was. And I want to tell you that I sit here today feeling blessed. I feel so blessed, and I feel so honored and so privileged to be sitting on this panel, but also to be in front of you as your sister and as a warrior standing with you in solidarity. I was fortunate enough to have people help me along the way, to help find my voice. And one of those was my sister, Johanna Hester. Woo! I am so proud to call her my sister and my friend. She has really done some remarkable things with APALA. But I want to share with you that she also was one of my mentors. And this was a woman who talked, and I'm going to get emotional, sorry. Every time I was around her, she was lifting me up and telling me and educating me about the struggles. She knew her stuff, and she was ready to help anyone who wanted to join, right? I learned a lot of valuable things from my sister. So I just want to extend my thanks to you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. And you should be very, very proud of this woman who represents APALA well. So let's give her a round of applause. Now, sisters and brothers, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us working together to fight corporate greed, and particularly when it comes to our nation's prisons.
That's right.
Where billion-dollar corporations are moving into the profit and human misery. Our criminal justice system should not be powered by companies with a profit incentive. This is inherently government function. This is an inherently government function that we should be protecting. These giant corporations are moving into many states. My time is not up already, right? We're standing.
Damn.
I'm good, right?
You're good.
Okay. I was like, geez, man. Okay, I'm good. Because I'm not sitting down yet.
See what I mean? Dealing with fierce sisters.
I'm big. Right? Sí se puede. These giant corporations, you guys, they're moving into states. They're empowered by governors who are happy. They're more than happy to let government services just go to the wayside. And the losers in these deals are the inmates. They're the inmates, they're the workers, and they're the broader communities that they serve. An inmate in a private prison is much less likely to have access to decent medical care, decent food, rehabilitation services, training, or safe and humane conditions. We at AFSCME, we know these problems very well because we represent 85,000 corrections officers in this country, as well as mental health workers, nurses, parole officers, and many others throughout the criminal justice system. And now we see prison corporations taking over public prisons with a vested interest in keeping a person in prison. They are not there to protect communities. They're there to make money. And working with our community partners, we are very well positioned in this fight. We represent both correctional system workers and relatives of people who are in prison or who are under state supervision. Our members are part of the community. But unfortunately, we face many right-wing state officials who are inherent on outsourcing all of our work.
That's right.
Schools, roads, trash collection, mental health, and prisons. They're not looking out for our communities. We've already seen that happen in Michigan and in Ohio, where officials outsource food services in prisons to private companies. The food is so bad that only the maggots are enjoying it. It's true. It's true. And when our Ohio affiliate that represents state workers offered the lowest bid to private food services, state officials found ways to disqualify that bid and to reward the same food vendor that was causing the problems.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell no is right. The food isn't the biggest worry, though. They also want to replace trained corrections officers with low-paid, less experienced workers at these private prisons. This is a disadvantaged trend, a dangerous trend that is driven, what else? By profit. Private prison companies, they want a steady stream of customers to guarantee higher profits. So they push stricter sentencings, lockup quotas, and dumping of mental patients in prisons. Some insist that the state pay them. They insist that the state pay them for each bed that's not occupied at a 90% rate. Did y'all know that? Pretty sickening, isn't it? Maybe there's a correlation there, huh? To why so many of our youngsters are in jail, in prisons. These greedy contractors also push changes in immigration laws, including immigrant detention quotas. New immigrants are being deprived of their freedom just to fill arbitrary quotas set in the Homeland Security Department funding bills. They want them in those detention facilities. Our communities deserve better than this. And we, y'all, we are going to change it. We're going to fight together, right?
That's right.
A unified labor movement. Looks like us.
Yeah.
Looks like us. A unified labor movement working with community allies that can ensure that our criminal justice system remains an essential government function. Now she got closer.
Did you notice that?
I did. So I will close. I will say that again. I'm very, very proud to be here with you all. And I hope one day in the very near future that there will be more people that look like me sitting next to you. But I will never stop fighting, and I will never give up until we see this country to what it should be, right? So, okay,
Woo!
I'm done.
Let's give it up for Sister Lara. And I have to tell you, as the moderator and also the timekeeper, I'm very conflicted. But I just want to verify with the group here, is the message that the sisters are giving you resonating? Awesome. Okay, so now I am honored and privileged to bring on our final speaker. Also very fierce, Mary Catherine Ricker, Executive Vice President of AFT.
Thank you so much. And I do have to start by saying it is actually okay if you giggle every time I get introduced at a union meeting, because my grandma Catherine wanted me to be a nun so badly. And I like to think that every time I'm called Sister Mary Catherine, that's God's way of answering her prayer. So I get it when you have that extra smile on your face when I get introduced. I am so honored, as well, as Laura said, to stand among these women. And I'll be honest, I feel profoundly responsible at the same time, right? Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And so this is an amazing honor. And so I actually feel pretty strongly, being the last one up to bat, that we're on the same page here about fighting corporatization and greed. So I want you to know what AFT is going to do about it. And it is not so much being prepared, and it is doing, the present progressive tense. So as an English teacher, I will try to condense this into a 5-minute mini lesson. And I want you to first be assured, the first thing I want you to be assured about is we do not play small, right? We will not play small. And the second thing I want you to be assured about is to get to our students, they will have to go through us. And they have been trying to go through us, but they will have to go through us. So, part of fighting corporatization and greed is fighting forward. Be sure. It is being solution-driven. It is offering a better vision. It is offering better ideas. It is working in community. It is intersecting our issues across the community with race and gender and orientation and geography. It is absolutely fighting forward. And part of that, you all know, is fighting back. And so in fighting forward, you heard yesterday from Helen Jim, who is one example of ways we are fighting forward. We are not just fighting candidates who are crappy, right? We are putting forward candidates with vision, candidates who will stand in community and work elbow to elbow instead of using us as a rung on the ladder to stand up for their next opportunity, right? Part of fighting forward is also making sure that we hold charters responsible, for charter schools responsible for the profound honor they have to teach students, right? And so that means now making sure we represent over 9,000 charter school teachers in the United States, because they deserve union representation too, right? And we've found when we represent charter school teachers, the hedge fund managers who want to run charter schools, the people who want to privatize charter schools, for some reason, they run away from unionized charter schools. And those unionized charter schools run more democratically, they are more open, they are more vocal, because they are covered under some sort of union contract. They have the sort of academic freedom to fight for their students that others who are at-will employees, and you know this in any sector, right? Others who are at-will employees do not have the same protections to do. So we are making sure that that happens. And part of it, let's be clear, is fighting back. So we take on corporate giants. How many of you know Pearson? Yeah. So if you're not familiar with Pearson, chances are your children know who Pearson is, because they are an international corporate giant that develops standardized tests across the world, as well as technology. So we have taken on Pearson. We actually went to their stockholders meeting in London, where we questioned their motives and operations publicly and got international news for it. We sent around a petition that got 30,000 people to sign around the world to end their monitoring of our students' social media accounts, so because they're looking for cheating. They were spying on our kids. An international corporation spying on our kids, and we called them out on it. We also made sure that we passed a resolution at our last Education International Congress to make sure that we were fighting corporatization and greed worldwide, because they're expanding it worldwide. We got to lock arms with our brothers and sisters around the world and fight back. Last point I want to make about curriculum. When they look at public schools, they see money. They see money in textbooks, they see money in materials, they see money in writing curriculum, and what they do with that, they promote dangerous, whitewashed versions of our nation's past, right? They promote ethnic study bans because it doesn't help them sell textbooks. It doesn't help them make money. It doesn't help them when we teach our interconnectedness. It only helps them when we teach a whitewashed version of history. And so we are fighting ethnic studies bans. We are lifting up intellectual freedom as well as academic freedom so that our teachers can teach what is right. Mother Jones published a list of things that is taught by textbook companies that whitewash our history. and this was exposed in Louisiana. Humans and dinosaurs live together, that Africa needs religion. God used the Trail of Tears to bring many Indians to Christ, that the majority of slaveholders treated their slaves well. The KKK was founded to fight moral decline, and the Depression was exaggerated. Right? Make no mistake that when corporations and these greedy privatizers try to get their fingers on our curriculum, they are doing it to keep us separated. They are doing it to keep us skeptical of each other. They are doing it to keep us suspicious of each other so that they can continue to control us, and we will not have it. We will fight for academic freedom. We will fight for ethnic studies across this country, and we will elevate our interconnectedness. Let's go, Kapshida.
Brothers and sisters, we're going to end this session with a chant. Everyone stand up. Ain't no power like the power of the union, because the power of the union.
Don't stop.
Say what?